Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to this session of DestiCon from RFP to realization. I hope that you guys have enjoyed the beginning of DestiCon. We're almost at the end, which is kind of crazy. This is the second to last session of the day. But we have had some amazing content. We have a really great session today. I'm going to share my screen here in just a second and kind of get us kicked off. But what I would love to do is kind of let our panelists introduce themselves. I'm going to get us presenting here. And then, Chris, I will let you kick us off here and give everyone a gist of what you do, what CFE Productions does, and also let us know your kind of how you work within the meetings industry and who you typically work with.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Floyd. I'm the owner of CFE, a full-service in-house event live event company. What that means is we handle everything, from the staging to the lighting to the LED walls to the draping, to the sound to the integration along with the entertainment. So we handle events from small private events all the way up to large scale corporate events. That's kind of our bread and butter. We're based in Dallas, events all over the United States. And yeah, we are essentially to the event planner. We are the boots on the ground. We are in the know. We ask the right questions, and we are professional problem solvers. When it comes to corporate events, there's always going to be something that's going wrong or happening or changing day up. And our job is not only set up the event and make it look beautiful, but make it good, make it flow, and really just be, the ultimate support for your coordinator. And yeah, we've been about 6 years now, and just growing every single year and having a great time doing it. And yeah, so that's a little bit about us. We love what we do.
Awesome. So Chris, really quick before we move on to Magdalena, give us, I know you've been planning events all across the country. So give us a few of the destinations you've been planning events in lately.
Totally. So are in San Francisco a lot. We are San Francisco, San Diego, Dallas, and Oklahoma. Those are the main places we tend to stick around.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thanks for joining us today. We're super excited to have you. Magdalena Bonnelly, I'll let you introduce yourself and your affiliation with the meetings industry for everybody.
Sure. Thank you for having me, Kristen. I'm honored to be here and to speak on the topic that you are moderating. So I appreciate. I am Magdalena Bonnelly. I'm an owner and founder of Procurement Strategy Group, formerly known as Event Strategies. I am also based in Dallas, just north of Dallas in one of the suburbs. I have been in business going on 5th year now. And before that, I was on the supplier side for a little bit over 20 years. I worked in a hospitality industry, working for major hotel brands, organizing from small meetings, 10 to 20 people at my earlier days, all the way to large convention gatherings for one of the biggest convention cities in the world, Las Vegas. So it has been a fun ride, but the most fun that I have had so far is being on my own and running my own company. And I specialize in setting foundation for any kind of meeting and event for corporations and organizations, and that is procurement process that later on seamlessly flows into the planning, logistics, and then execution. So I very much so focus on the procurement, creating current, most accurate RFP there is for the client. And I have, in order to do that, I have created my own 7-step procurement process after doing some research, what would work for the meeting planner. I have created that process and I utilize it for my clients. And so far, we have had a awesome success with it. So I'm super excited to be here and especially talk on this topic, as it is right up my alley. Thank you, Kristen.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. So for those listening, we will take questions throughout this session. You do not have to wait until the end. We will have a little Q&A at the very end, but this is a very fluid conversation. We are talking to two very well-connected individuals within the meetings and convention space. These guys, Chris and Magdalena, work directly with meeting planners every day. They take a portion of that planning process from the planner where necessary. So these guys are extreme resources for those of you in the destination space that want to know directly from planners, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What could we be doing different as a destination? So please ask questions throughout. This is definitely a very fluid conversation. So jump into the first big question. Now, these questions are crafted to spark other questions. So again, we might have some other questions we'll address within this panel, and please feel free to put those in the chat. But I want to start by asking kind of a loaded question here. What type of service or assistance would a city be surprised to hear is important to a planner this year? And I'm saying this year, kicking off 2023, obviously the industry, the planning process, a lot of this has changed over the last few years. So what would a city, a destination really be surprised to hear in terms of a service that would be really important to a planner? And I'll let you jump in, Chris, first, if you want to address from your point of view.
So what type of service or assistance would a city be surprised to hear is important to a planner? In our world, as far as like the production side of things, when it comes to planning events and there's always something new. So I would say a city might be surprised to hear, that the thing. So when a planner comes up, we want it to, we have a 10,000 person event. We want it to snow. Like, well, that's a very interesting service. Can you guys pull it off? So I would say that for us, that is an always evolving, a forever evolving question, and it's not going to be the same. So from our side of things, that question is going to be different every single year, and we have to adapt and know all of the latest and greatest technology, all of the latest and greatest ways of planning an event, way of running an event. So we always have to be prepared. So I would answer that question by saying, a city would be surprised every single year.
Right.
And that means us, we have to be more creative. We have to be even more ahead of the game. So that question is, when I hear that, I'm like, man, okay, yeah, that's every year. That's always going to be something different and something creative and fun, and we really have to sink our teeth into it and really get to the nitty gritty of it and really have fun with that and have fun planners and our clients' event dreams, a reality. So yeah, it's I could go on forever about that, but essentially that's what I would say. It's forever different every single year, something new. Every event is something new, something different.
What I'm hearing you say too, if I'm a destination and I don't have a production company in my back pocket to go to, when a planner comes to me and says, hey, I want to plan an event at your convention center and I really need snow, I'm going to say, let me get back to you on that. But really what essentially I need is a production person or a company or someone in my back pocket who the hotel maybe is working with or the convention center could that need to life. So having, I think, a pocket of services that goes beyond just the connections with the hotels and their preferred partners, but also some local production companies that might be able to do those large scale, hey, we want to do it big this year sort of events.
Absolutely.
So that's great.
Yeah, you always want to have somebody who's in your corner, who's on your team, who understands the jargon, the lingo, every single nut and bolt. And maybe you don't even use them. So a lot of planners from, so we were doing events in Dubai a couple of years ago, which was great. And, I'm obviously not in Dubai right now. They would call me and say, hey, Chris, we have, we're going to do this event in this city up here, and they want this like type of thing. Can you maybe pull some strings and ask around just for some local contacts? Because we know that you are really well connected in the production scene, and you know what to look for. You know how to solve our problem. You know how to get it done quicker than we could. Like, absolutely. We make a couple calls, we get it figured out. If we can't be there, which in the United States we can, but if it's, maybe a really busy part of the year, or just a totally different country, we are there. We are the can go and solve that problem quicker and cheaper, because that's what we do. And so, yeah.
Right. Awesome. Great points. Magdalena, did you have any thoughts on the topic?
Yes, and I will kind of piggyback on what was already said here, is that it changes, for me, what I'm seeing in my experience so far, not only every year, but it changes from one planner to the other, because every single meeting or convention will have a different objective and goal in mind. Of course, there are some goals that we can generalize on, like every meeting planner wants to have a satisfied attendees. Every meeting planner wants to have a seamless event. Those are the dreams, right? But there are those organizations who have specific goals for each meeting. Even the small ones, the 10, 15 person meetings, they have a certain goal that they are trying to achieve with that gathering. And especially in the last year, I organized and executed over, I want to say, 70 meetings that were small meetings from a time of March till December. And what I found is that very often the suppliers, the vendors, they approached the client with putting them in a box. Okay, here is what we do, and you need to adjust to us and what we do in our venue / hotel / convention center, versus, okay, can you tell me what are you trying to accomplish with that meeting? So then I can help you execute it in our venue / hotel / convention center. It's not maybe a surprising fact, but I yet need to find a vendor who will actually ask that question, who is not, let's say, a liaison like myself or Chris between the meeting planner and the end supplier, because we are in some way vendor / supplier as well, because we supply some kind of services to the meeting planner. But when it comes to destinations, when it comes to venues, I think that really approaching every meeting, even the smallest one, with a approach that allows the particular supplier to cater to those goals and objectives, because each meeting has those. Right. And then trying to be creative, how this can be executed successfully, so the meeting planner looks like a rock star in front of their bosses in that particular venue or destination. So that would be my suggestion to everyone who is listening and tuning in.
Perfect. Great points, Magdalena. I think one of the things that, we find with convention services, both from a DMO and a hotel, and even the convention center, if it's separate from the hotel, I think we have to look at every potential opportunity for an event with an open mind. We have to really figure out in the get-go, is this a fit for our destination or not, pretty quickly, but at the same time, not really restricting that planner to feel like they do have to plan within this box, and those potential services to make an event a little different, a little more unique, letting them know that those exist in that. So that very great points there. So moving on to our second question, this kind of goes hand in hand to what we just spoke about in terms of that kind of that more elevated service from a CVB or a DMO. How important is the city and hotel relationship to your planners? Meaning that, you know, if I'm a planner and I do have to come into a destination, obviously our goal in the tourism industry is to let meeting planners know that the CVB, DMO, is your go-to planning resource. They do have those connections to hotels and venues within the destination to really kind of help find a spot. What do you think that planners wish was different about that process of planning a large event? Let's say I come to a destination and I do have my RFP, and as this destination has connections to all of the hotels. What would you say would meeting planner in that relationship? And Magdalena, I'll let you kick this one off because I know you work within this realm quite a bit.
Yes. Thank you so much, Kristen. That's a very, very interesting question. And there's a lot of thoughts that are going through my head right now. And as I was getting ready for this panel, I have been thinking about this question a lot because there is a lot to pack in there. So what I will start is that in my past experience, when I worked on the hotel side, I was fortunate to work in cities where back then it was CVB, now it's a DMO. They would make often trips to the hotel where I was and make sure that the relationship between actual city representative and the hotel representative is close, and that there is an understanding of that the city, if the hotel brings a meeting into their door, to their four walls of the banquet space, the city benefits from that. And then also if the city is bringing in RFP to the hotel, that of course hotel will benefit from that as well. So that there is that mutual understanding of mutual benefits. And there are a handful of cities that I have seen working towards that relationship, because what that does is that later on translates into the relationship that the city and hotel will have with meeting planner or with that third party person who is sourcing the RFP. And meeting planners really can tell when that relationship is close and tight and supportive of each other, or when there is a kind of a disconnect and
Right.
Everybody is in it for their own. So I would say cohesiveness between city and the venues that they have in their backyard. That is very important. And what would be different about the process of planning a large event? Usually those large events go to a convention center that is usually owned by a city. And that convention center usually is within a walking distance from few venues that can support the convention center with the room blocks. So I would say some kind of what am I trying to say? I'm not talking about the relationship. I'm talking about streamlining the contracting process.
Right.
That's what I would like to see, especially for large events, because when I need to contract 5 different hotels, and then on top of it, deal with the convention center that is a city-owned, that is a government contract with a very strict government clauses, there is a major disconnect between every single document. So streamlining that process somehow would be really, really beneficial for me, at least, whenever I have a meeting to plan that is on that scale. And I would assume to every meeting planner that has those in their coming for 2023.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I would say also, I think one of our bigger goals with planners in general is the efficiency, right? So as a planner, if I'm going to utilize the destination, the city department, the tourism department to help me plan my meeting, I think one of the things I'm expecting is that rather than going to 10 different hotels that could potentially host my meeting, I'm going to go through this one point of contact.
Right.
And that point of contact will really be able to work with the hotels to determine the best potential places to host. So it's also streamlining that point of contact as well, I think, and making their lives a little easier.
Correct.
Obviously, a good relationship, open communication, very fluid process of handling the RFPs, I think makes all of that really work seamlessly for the planner.
Yes, yes. And, I do take into consideration the recent challenges in the hospitality industry with, shortage of labor. There is currently, what I'm seeing is that there is a new issue that is kind of a waterfall, little trickle from the shortage of labor is the influx of new employees who do need a training, who do need to be a little bit more hands-on, have a little bit more hands-on experience because they are so new to the industry.
Right.
But, there are some challenges, but I think that if if we keep our attention on efficiency, that will benefit everybody.
Right. Totally agree there. Chris, before we jump to the next question, did you have any thoughts or things you wanted to throw in on this particular question?
Yeah, I mean, in the sense that, open communication and a good relationship is key. To plan a meeting in a city, the relationship, the city, the hotel is key. That's in the sense that if someone comes to us, we know who to work with. We know, with someone we know built up that relational equity, then we can help our clients and people, or the meeting that we are planning. We can help them just streamline that and say like, hey, you don't want to go here. You want to go here. Here is why. We have a great relationship. They will essentially bend over backwards for us, which will in turn we will bend over backwards for our clients in the meetings that we are trying to plan, because we have that relational equity and relational experience. And so,
Right.
yeah, I think y'all both nailed it in the sense that, if someone is going to trust us, then they know that we have a great relationship with each of the cities, the hotels, and we kind of know, hey, what's going to make this the quickest, the just most streamlined, easiest, cleanest projection to get your meeting planned. So yeah, I think that's all. But yeah, the relational equity there is key, and we groups like our group, we definitely have that, and we understand the importance of that.
I love that term, relational equity. I'm actually writing it down. Yeah. I'm going to use it somewhere.
Come on.
I think that obviously efficiency, being able to streamline for the planner, given the fact that not just on the hotel side and hospitality, Magdalena, as you pointed out, we do definitely see issues and have seen issues since COVID with that, with staff shortage and new staff coming on board. But there are so many more meeting planners too that are planning more meetings because of their shortage, right, on their industry, and they're having to do more with less resources. So how do we make their process a little more seamless, and help them, reduce the amount of points of contact where they feel like they can still rely on that contact to help them get things done, but we're all kind of wearing a lot of hats, right, in that process. So those are all great points. This question, I think, kind of really branches off of something that we know is extremely important going into 2023, and that is the potential to do a better job as a hotel, a convention center, really any venue to really showcase their property in a more virtual environment. Because as we know, it's not as easy when you have limited resources to get out and travel and do site visits for every potential place you want to host your meeting, right? You got to do some legwork. So what can hotels, convention centers, all of those types of venues do to provide a better view of their spaces to get a planner that can't be on site prior to booking? So they really just have this virtual experience that they can make decisions from. So what do you think are important in those virtual experiences? And both of you are going to have lots of comments on this, so I'll let either one of you kick it off.
Well, I can start here with one thing that it just immediately come to mind for me is find a day where you have empty meeting space and actually set up the room the way that the planner wants, and then do the walkthrough with, video on your phone, and while the planner is on Zoom or Teams, whatever, and actually show the actual setup, not on the paper, not on the picture, but inside the meeting space. I have had some clients with some tricky setups in the past, and virtual tour of the public spaces that is recorded on, through the marketing team. That is a kind of a promotional video. That's all perfect. The actual setup of the meeting space, that is what keeps meeting planners at night, keeps them up at night. And do the setup, show them how it will look like, and most likely that will get you the booking.
Great. Love it. Chris, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah. I echo everything that you said. I think that's absolutely true. Like a good virtual setup, a good, honest virtual setup would be, and I think the word that really comes to my mind is transparency. Transparency is not only if a venue or a hotel or whatever can just be extremely transparent about, hey, here is our price line item for power. A lot of hotels and venues, they don't offer that power cost sheet until someone asks for it. So we obviously are trained to ask for it, but have things laid out, having a good, honest virtual tour. You say, hey, here's exactly what we can do. Here's what we can't do. Hey, here's some questions that you might not have thought of, but let me go ahead and lay those questions out for you. And then people can address those. Because if you're not, in the nuts and bolts, like we are, like CFE is every single day with Ben, there's a lot of questions that kind of go under the bridge that people don't think of. Like, for example, the power price sheet, that seems to be a big one. Fire marshal approval of certain things, certain elements for your meeting, certain elements for your event, max capacity, have all of that ahead of time. Be like, hey, here's the room, here's a virtual tour of it. Now that we can do, here's what maybe you might not have thought of that will probably come up. And then here are all preset things that we've already made for you. So just like us at CFE Productions, a production company, but we're professional problem solvers. I think hotels and venues and that sort of thing, every time I see a venue mimic our idea of, hey, we're professional problem solvers, we're going to think of your problems before they happen, so that we already have like a beautiful tied up in a bow. Here is that is just like off the planner's back. It just it builds trust, it builds rapport, and yeah, I can't stress enough, just transparency is key for something like that.
Absolutely. And I will mimic that. I will say that in my planner days, I'm not doing as much planning, but Chris, you and I work together in those days, and
Totally.
You are a professional problem solver. I think even to this day, he has nothing to do with the meeting, and I still go, hey Chris, what do you think about this? I think that planners, hotels, convention centers, DMO, sales managers, they all need a professional problem solver type solution in their back pocket, because there are so many, again, special requests. Can I do this? Is this an option? Those are all questions, but then you have a lot of questions also that the meeting planner doesn't necessarily have yet. They don't know what to ask yet. So if you can get ahead of those problems, man, that just solves much for the planner. Magdalena, I'll let you jump in here too. Oh, Chris, sorry, keep going with your thought.
You're right. The planner has so much to do and so much going on. You got to have that right hand with you, and
Absolutely.
makes everything so much easier. So yeah, good.
Absolutely.
And for me, you know, as a past salesperson, where I was in the shoes of the hotel selling the meeting space, the sales process is a sales process, right? We will do whatever it takes as a salesperson to bring the client to our venue. And I have seen, as I'm saying that, when I crossed over to the other side of the meeting planning, I have seen venues coming up with some really creative ways to overcome some obstacles when they cannot accommodate what the client exactly wants, especially when it comes to meeting space. You cannot just create an additional 1,000 square feet or additional breakout rooms without building them. So when you're maxed out, you're maxed out. And as much as I appreciate very often that creativity, and for some meeting planners, it can work beautifully, there are also those meeting planners who really do not have flexibility in their setups. This has to be this way. I'm sorry, it will not work. Maybe some other time. And for a hotel to take that and understand that, unfortunately, they are not the best fit. I think it is a sign of emotional maturity and intelligence on the sales manager's side when they can say that, then I'm sorry, this is all we can do, versus trying for the meeting planner to completely change their program to fit in the hotel, rather than the hotel catering to the meeting planner to make the objectives and the goals of the meeting happen. So that's another thought that comes to my head. It's not necessarily the better view of the meeting space, but what to do maybe when the meeting space does not really fit the need. Creativity is appreciated, but that doesn't work all the time.
Right. Right. Great points. I think another thing too that I want to throw out here is, like you mentioned, Magdalena, you know, if a particular event does not fit that particular hotel, I think this is another reason why that relationship amongst the hotels and amongst the venues within the destination is extremely important, because ideally that hotel needs to provide that opportunity to another hotel within the destination. Like, let's keep these meetings within the city, right? So
Right.
What other hotel, what other venue could accommodate this particular meeting? Can't, doesn't mean that we can't bring this to life in another city where restaurants can still benefit. We still get some benefit, right? So I think that is also important. To kind of round out this particular topic too, something that I've seen destinations do, and we've actually worked with a couple of our clients at Destination Innovate on this, is doing more actual video and documenting various types of meeting setups as those meetings are in destination. So planners can get a feel. Let's say it's a convention center with 100,000 square feet overall. A planner who's planning various types of meetings needs to be able to see that setup in various types of ways. Like, can I do this type of thing here? How much obstruction am I going to have in the main hall? Like, there are so many things that a planner needs to see. So doing more of those, videos, doing as much, interviewing of those planners as possible when they're in destination. I think all of that is definitely footage. It's marketing material that you can use later on to market those types of meetings, and how different that space can be set up. Okay, so I'm going to jump into our fourth question, and we have 6 total questions, so and 25 minutes left. So I think we're going to be right on time, but I do want to just be cognizant of time. A question that I think that destinations kind of want to hear, and something that I think is also, again, it's a variance, right? Depending on who type of planner you are and where you're planning. But how far in advance are you guys seeing your larger, more corporate type planners looking out right now? Do you feel like it's, minimized? Are we starting to see, next year, 2025, 2026 events? Like, how are you guys seeing that change in booking time?
Yeah, totally. What I've seen is ever since COVID, there's been a lot of fear of the future. For what I've seen is people are not booking as far in advance because they, for some reason, are afraid of something happening, because it happened. It happened, and they're like, oh, it could happen again. That's not to say everybody, but that is to say, so there are still the classic normal, we're booking a year in advance, and those are my favorite. Great, boom, done. But I have seen an uptick, at least in our industry, in our area, that people are booking like way shorter because something happens. What if something comes up?
Mm-hmm.
And those are, where, us as problem solvers come back in. We say, okay, we have less time, but it's going to be just as successful. It's going to be just as amazing. It's going to be just as awesome. It's going to be just as big. And but we're on a shorter timeline. So to answer that question, we still have the same amount of people booking in advance, but I have noticed that some people, a good enough, in shorter timelines, and that's different from each section of work that we do. The corporate scene is usually pretty far in advance, but like in our corporate clientele are booking way shorter. Are booking 2 years in advance, and some are now booking like a month in advance. And so I would say ever since COVID, I've seen a drastic change in the timeline from which corporate planners are booking out, just from
right. Too. I know, Magdalena, you have some great feedback on this question as well.
Yes, and Chris, you are absolutely on point here with the changed timeline since COVID happened, and that fear of the future, preventing meeting planners to plan, let's say, 3 or 4 years in advance, where before COVID, for a meeting of 400 people and above, 3 to 4 years in advance wasn't really that far. That was kind of a standard timeline. Now I'm seeing those meetings having a timeline of 2 years, maybe 18 months, and if they happen, because what I am actually seeing is that there is definitely more focus on smaller gatherings rather than the big ones. Of course, citywides will always happen. They might not happen every year, but there will still be a market segment for the citywides. However, the corporate meetings that are below the citywide numbers, those have a tendency to be much smaller in size than they used to be. Therefore, the timeline for the booking is changing as well. And to piggyback on that, I feel that it cuts into also into the timeline for booking the really small events, those events that the express meeting managers are taking care of, which used to be, depending which destination and which hotel, it's anywhere between 45 to 90 day booking window. So it all is shrinking. And as Chris mentioned, we all need to work with tighter deadlines, shorter periods of time to get things accomplished. And unfortunately, the hurdles have not stopped coming with or without COVID. So we still have a lot of hoops to jump. Either we are planning 18 months in advance or 3 months in advance. So definitely a lot of creativity and efficiency is always appreciated on the venues, on the vendors, and on meeting planners as well. This is not to say that meeting planners need to be stuck in the mentality of, oh, because we've always done it this way, it needs to be done this way as well. Again, there are meetings that need to happen in a certain format, but when there is an opportunity for some open-mindedness, I think it benefits every single person, every single stakeholder that is involved in the planning process.
Absolutely. Would you say, Magdalena, and I'm just curious for your corporate clients, would you say that your corporate business, are they really looking for a different approach? So let's say they do want to book 2 years out, but they want some sort of guarantee that if they have to cancel or they had to move their meeting or something, are you finding that planners are really looking for some sort of different type of contracting for those events they book further out?
Yes, definitely. There is much bigger emphasis on cancellation clause first and foremost. How does it look like? How flexible is it?
Right.
Force majeure is always scrutinized for the, the what's actually listed as a force majeure. So there's a lot of emphasis on that clause. And any kind of way that the venue or the destination can creatively, put in a contract and assure the client that they will work with the client in case another pandemic happens or other,
Right.
factor that we might not know today about, So, so there's more procurement, legal departments and procurement departments inside the organizations are definitely paying attention to those clauses much more than before.
It's great to know. Good to know there. Okay, I'm going to move on, guys, to question 5. This kind of looks at, what types of events do you guys feel are making a stronger comeback than others? Is it corporate? Is it association? Is it those smaller meetings? Is it more in-person trainings? Is it, or are you guys seeing that, more events are going virtual, rather than in person? Kind of give us some feedback on what you're seeing in terms of different types of events, and what do you feel like is kind of coming back to life in the event world? Chris,
Yeah, totally. Sure. Yeah. Man, I think it's like twofold. What I've seen is one, live events are coming back like crazy. At least that's like that's the gist that I'm getting. Just live in, whether it be small, whether it be big, large corporate events, whether it be the smaller meetings, that sort of thing.
Ready to get out and meet again.
That is, people want to party, and whether that be in the form of a large corporate event or a smaller meeting. I think really where the at-home stuff has really changed is working from home. But when it comes to the events, people, at least from what I've seen, people want to come back. I see what I also predict is like, man, we've been getting a lot of inquiries for some pretty gnarly production elements for events that really weren't there, because people are like, we want to come back. We would come back bigger, better, stronger. We want for a corporate event, let's say, we want our company to be stronger, more tight-knit than ever, because people aren't in the office making connections in those relationships as much anymore. They are now wanting to have one of unity and people can go to, so that people can really lock in and say, like, yes, we are on the same team, because people are not really in the office as much anymore. They're all kind of working from home. So the events, I think, are going to skyrocket in the sense of how big and how crazy and wild and cool and creative they are, because people aren't getting that every single day-to-day interaction in person as much anymore, because so many more people are working from home. So as far as the big events go, I foresee those even bigger and stronger than before, because a lot of these larger companies, corporations, they need to create those relationships within their employees, and then employees and managers and that sort of thing. And just everyone needs to just place where they can all meet up in person, because there's way less of that going on because of things like Zoom and from home. So to answer your question, I'd say live events in general are making a stronger comeback than just those in general. Maybe a little bit less on like the smaller meeting side, just from my experience. The smaller meetings some people tend to get away with the virtual ones. If it can be done virtual, yeah, maybe.
Right.
But as far as like the large corporate events, we did the live stream large corporate events, with entertainment, with everything, and they were great. However, the ones we've seen come back to like live and have been like bigger and wilder and more fun than ever. Just people are like wanting to,
That's awesome.
like itching to get out. They're itching to get there. So that's just from my experience, what I see.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. I feel like we're in this like reconnect era. Like, we haven't done an annual event, or we haven't seen each other from a company standpoint in a couple of years, right? Like we kind of took a break from that. So it is that like, let's reconnect in a whole different format and in a bigger, better way. And it does feel like we're in that era where all of the events that you went to in the past seem like they're bigger, better, more attended. It feels like we're in that for sure.
Yeah.
Magdalena,
a treat. Yes, it's awesome.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
For me, Kristen, I have few thoughts on this one, and I have my feet equally in the virtual world and in the in-person events. So where I am seeing, at least for myself and for my company, I am seeing a lot of workshops, trainings happening virtually, where services like moderators, those are simple events. Those do not require big production, but what they do is they do open up a borders. They can have people from all around the world attending the training that before they needed to fly into LA, for example, to happen. So the very specialty trainings, workshops, those I'm seeing happening a lot, and they are happening online. From time to time, they will be taken to an in-person, but that connection fostering, or hugging each other and getting to know each other, that element is not as important to those meetings. Therefore, virtual has been absolutely amazing environment for those. And what I feel is also happening is the small meetings are taking place in person for sure. They are, and I'm talking about small meetings where you are meeting with clients, again, trainings, workshops, any kind of sales academy, where the event itself is educational. It's teaching others something. They do happen in person, and they usually happen in the big hubs where it's easy to get in and out of the city. It's a day and a half, 2 days, boom, boom, we're done. Everybody's flying back where they need to fly. And those usually happen on a national level. So I see a lot of those as well. The bigger events, I feel that most of my clients, they needed to rebook for 2023. So I might see an uptick of those coming in starting this year, actually. But right now, at least where my business is, we were in that rebooking window where COVID needed to cancel those meetings, and the next available year needed to be booked. So, so that's kind of what is happening in my world.
Okay, awesome, great points. I think that definitely mimics with what Chris was saying about those smaller meetings. It does make sense that those are now happening a bit more online and virtual. Okay, let's jump to our last question, which I think is a great segue. Hybrid events. So events that you guys see being planned where you want an in-person and you want a virtual component to that event. How do you guys see those events playing out this year? Do you feel like we're going to continue to see more of the hybrid events where there's options for both, or do you feel like hybrid is going to phase out to the point where you either plan in person or you plan virtual, but not both? How do you guys feel about that? Magdalena, I'll let you kick this one off.
Yeah, thank you. You know, one common thread that I'm seeing for the hybrid event is that whoever attends it online has a feedback of, I felt like a second-class citizen. So if those are not executed correctly, where the online attendee has is incorporated, not only incorporated into the live version, but they are active participant, where
Right.
they are not just, watching it on the screen and in the meantime checking their email and responding to text messages. I would say that hybrid, I'm feeling icky about hybrid. Because it needs to be put on correctly. And in order to do that, there needs to be a budget for it. And what I have been hearing is with the cost of the bandwidth that is needed in the venues to put on a hybrid event, it becomes a really, really huge budget number in the budget for an organization. Therefore, they I think that they might not be as popular option unless it is just, setting expectation. Hey, if you want to attend, log into Zoom. You will be able to see the event, but not maybe be as active participant as if you would attend in person. Therefore, for next year, there is that kind of itch in the attendee to actually buy the flight ticket, get the hotel room and go to the in-person event. So to me, hybrid events, if executed correctly and the money is there to spend on it, there might be happening here and there. But I have not heard a good feedback from attendees whenever it was happening. So I'm thinking it might not be as popular option.
Gotcha. And Chris, you and I were just talking about this because we were talking about the platform that we're using for this virtual event, which is Excel Events, which has been amazing, by the way. If you guys out there are thinking about hosting a virtual event or doing some sort of virtual experience in place of an in-person, it has been the most amazing technology. But Chris, you and I were talking about how it needs to be this amazing technology, right? In order for the virtual participant to feel like they're part of the event. And that's so hard to do with that hybrid, right? You've got all this in-person happening and you've got all this virtual happening. So how does that work together to give that virtual attendee the real experience that you want them to have?
Yeah. At it in a couple that I see and I noticed is just looking at how much money is going into new technology, because like we're on the nuts and bolts side of things. So how much technology not only we have purchased to with live stream to make live stream better, to make live stream more immersive. It's insane how much new tech is coming out. I think it's here to stay. Obviously we all have our opinions on what we think is better and what we think is worse and what we think is more immersive. But I think the reality is that it's going to be here. Personally, I is where it's at, is where it should be. And we're definitely moving there. We're getting more and more going that way. But, I think hybrid is here to stay. And I think it will always play a role. I think technology, like this platform, like the platforms that we integrate our live events with, needs to be seamless, needs to be interactive, needs to be user friendly, and most importantly, it needs, because hybrid events, like I said, I personally here to stay. So we need to make them as immersive and interactable as possible. And so way that we do that is we have a specific interaction for people who are live stream only, so those people feel like they are involved in some way. But I absolutely see, hybrid events continuing to play a role in the event scene this year, next year. Augmented reality,
right.
Expanding, that's just going to continue to grow. Is the most immersive, most interactive, and the most fun. But I think the world hybrid's going to for a little bit, and it's just going to continue to get more immersive.
Yeah.
And Kristen, if I may just add one more thing here for the hybrid event, what I would like to see is hybrid events on the online side to be more accessible.
Right.
That is one thing that is a common thread throughout many Facebook groups in any online forum, is truly having an event tech be accessible to those with disabilities, where everybody truly feels included and being able to participate.
That is such a great point. I'm glad you brought that up, Magdalena. Great point. Okay, we are about out of time, guys, which is crazy. It doesn't feel like we've been on here a whole hour, but we had such great conversation. I feel like we covered quite a few topics. Lots of great, I appreciate you guys so much, letting us kind of get into your brains and giving these destinations a feel for what he wants to see and what they're thinking is a constant question. What does the planner want from us? What can we do better for the planners? So I feel like this is a constant conversation we need to have. I want to say before we break here, if you missed Adam Stoker's presentation this morning on Destination Marketing Podcast, go back and listen, guys. This is a really amazing podcast conversation for destinations that are thinking that they might want to dive in, aren't really sure. It's inspirational. So definitely hit that if you haven't. And also Jen Barbie's session this morning on destinations in the metaverse. We've talked a lot about virtual in this session. We've covered some virtual needs. We've talked about the need for hybrid. There's a lot of connection there. So if you haven't given that a listen, go back. All of these sessions are on demand now. This one will also be on demand once we conclude. And finally, if you have not done so, subscribe to the new podcast. We have a new podcast from Destination Innovate, Tech, Travel, and Twang. Because if you've heard Jennifer and I talk, obviously we got a little twang. But it'll be an amazing podcast. Okay, guys, go sign up for the newsletter so you get all the good intel on what's dropping. And if you have questions, we have a couple minutes left. If you guys have questions for Chris or Magdalena, please throw them in the chat. Give us a chance to answer those questions and keep the conversation rolling. While I'm waiting for those questions to roll in, if anybody has any, we have one session left at DestiCon before happy hour, okay? And that is Laura Hicks and Lori Rowe are going to talk about earned media, and it is definitely going to be an amazing session happening right after this one at 2 o'clock Central Time. So jump in there. Make sure you're getting all this good content today because it's about to be happy hour. And we all know what happens at happy hour. We're going to check out. It's Friday. So definitely check that out. And I don't think we have any questions, guys, so far. So I am so grateful for the both of you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for giving us some great intel. And guys, if you have not done so, check out Chris Floyd and Magdalena Bonnelly's companies. They are crucial elements to destinations right now in connecting to meeting planners. So if you want to reach out to them, Chris, do you want to kind of give everybody your contact, your email address, or the best way to reach out to you if they have questions?
Yeah, totally.
Throw it in the chat. Throw it in the chat.
Yeah. So anybody has any, what? Whoa, that was weird. Give me 1 second. Yeah, so this is my personal email.
Perfect.
And here is mine.
Yeah, reach out. I'd love to answer any questions you guys have, whether that be,
to procurement to anything under the sun when it comes to that sort of stuff. We're happy to help. Like I said, we're professional. And Kristen, thank you so much for having us on. That was super fun. And
Yes.
hopefully we get to do this again soon.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much,
Cool.
Kristen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. We'll see you soon.
See you soon.